And you see all those bundles? That's how the cardiac muscle is organized. It's not in flat sheets. Okay, it runs in bundles. And all these bundles of muscle in the atria are called pectinate ridges when they're in the atrial chamber. You can feel the wet serous lining of the atria, okay, over those bundles. And you see on the back wall it's fairly smooth, but on the front wall it's very much in these bundled appearance. On the back wall of the atrial chamber, it's more smooth and flat. You can feel the serous lining and endocardium. So these very obvious ridged muscle bands in the atria are called pectinate ridges. Okay? And then, when you look in here, you should see the tricuspid valve cusps, and you should be able to stick your probe under them. That's a valve cusp, that wet sheet right there. There's another one right here. Okay? The third one you usually cut when you cut it open, so you may have a bit of the valve cusp flapping over here, and the other part should be way inside over on this side over here. You should have at least one intact valve cusp, probably two, and the third one comes across the front, and you should have cut it, so you should have part of it. So you gotta, they just grow off the atrial endocardial lining, and it hangs down into the ventricle. Okay? They do have little tendinous cords. You should find these stringy little continuous cords, and they attach to ridges in the ventricle, like this ridge right here. That's called a papillary ridge, and these are what we mean by tendinous cords. So now find the chordae tendineae that attach the cuffs. The big muscle bands they attach them to in the ventricles are called papillary ridges. Pectinate ridges are muscle cords in the atria. Large muscle cords in the ventricle wall are papillary ridges when the chordae tendineae attach to them. Find chordae tendineae and papillary ridges, and find at least two valve cusps. They make a continuous sheet of valve, okay? One cusp you should have cut when you cut it open. The others should be continuous across the back. The posterior cusp should be quite flat here. Okay? This is one whole cusp here. This is another whole cusp here. Slide your probe right underneath it. Okay, pull up the tendinous cords. And then the third one, part of it will be over here and part of it's right here. It's not papillary ridges are the big ridges in the ventricles where the tendinous cords attach. Make sure you find those. Okay, so now functionally, the blood returns to the heart, to this right atria, goes through the tricuspid down into this little right ventricle. So if we run our fingers around this right atrial chamber, wherever our fingers come out, that's where the vena cavas would enter. If you have one big hole like I do, it's because the superior and inferior vena cava come in fairly close together, and they just cut most of the vena cavas off. You can see a little bit of that sticking up here. So they've made just one vena cava opening, and actually it should be two separate ones. Some of you may have two separate ones. Okay? If you don't, just find this one big opening. That's where the vena cavas come into the right atrium. If you actually have a bit of the vessels, they should, this is a bit of the superior vena cava wall here. Okay? This is a tiny little bit of the inferior vena cava wall here. Try to see if you can find at least some remnant of the mid wall vein that's coming into the right atrium.
Which is real bad. Honestly, like, my suggestion with these labs is try to study it as much as possible, because when it gets down to the midterm week,
if you open the atria up fully, this is not required, but you may find in these pectinate ridges another hole, and And if you stick your probe in there and it goes into this great cardiac vein on the back of the heart, well, that's the coronary sinus. That's the coronary sinus, and that's the hole where it comes in. You have to know that
coronary
lecture.
sinus
It is not on your assignment list to let. But students often ask me.
Just the left and the right.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What's
Probe around, you'll find the coronary sinus emptying into the right vein.
what's the other word for coronary sinuses? Oh, okay. So which one's the left and right? On the sides of the heart.
Right and left coronary sulcus, right
Oh.
and left atrioventricular.
Atrioventricular, yeah. That.
But this is the great cardiac vein that comes up front of the heart, goes around here, becomes the coronary sulcus right there, and empties the heart's blood back into the right vein. And you can probe and find that if you're interested. It's not on your assignment list. My probe is about to pop right out through the coronary sulcus in the great cardiac vein. I found the opening to it in the
Oh, right there. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Okay, next thing we're going to do is cut the pulmonary trunk vessel open to expose the pulmonary semilunar valve because it's in the base of this pulmonary trunk. So you're going to lay the heart anterior surface up now. Your cut should be over here on the side. And you're going to put some tension or pressure on this pulmonary trunk and stick your scalpel blade in about 1 inch up and cut down into the right ventricle going towards your other incision. You don't have to go down. Just cut over towards the other incision like this. So you should make a wedge of ventricular muscle right here. Okay?
Cut here and follow it. Here, you do it.
No, you're fine. I think you go like
This is where your old cut was. You find this pulmonary trunk and you're cutting over to meet that incision. Bring incision 2 over to incision 1 through the right ventricle.
all the way.
When you get in here, if it's like my heart, you may find a lot of clotted blood. If you have find clotted blood ever, you just have to pull it out of the way.
It's not bloody. Ah. That's funny. Yeah. Should probably pick up this.
Now, we want to look at the base of this pulmonary trunk. I've turned my light up so we can see inside. And try to find the very thin, delicate little pulmonary semilunar valve cusp. They do not have tendinous cords. The best way to find them is just to run your finger around in here and pull them up on your fingertip. That is a pulmonary semilunar valve cusp. There are 3 of them. You will have cut one on the front of the vessel. Try to find the 2 intact ones. You should have at least 1 intact one. I actually cut too deep and cut the back one too.
Oh,
Here's a piece of the other one. So find this pulmonary semilunar valve. They just grow up off the ventricular endocardium. Okay, they do not have any tendinous cords.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Maybe I'm just trying to compare.
Gotta find pulmonary semilunar valve.
This is not good.
Yeah, I don't
You should have at least 1 intact one, and then a partially cut one on that side and on this
Or
side.
maybe they're up here.
This one is
Should
nice.
I feel like if I cut this one.
So when the right ventricle contracts, the blood exits the ventricle, pushes these valves cusps open, and goes up into the pulmonary trunk, and it's on its way to the lungs now.
It's just like tissue.
Okay, again, this was your first incision over here, and now you've cut this pulmonary trunk and brought this incision over to meet this one, and
Yeah,
that's the
that's what we
right
do.
ventricle chamber, and the blood is exiting from here through this valve into the pulmonary trunk. Okay, remember this pulmonary trunk becomes right and left pulmonary arteries, which go to the lungs, but you just see the trunk right here.
Oh yeah. Someone's
All right?
okay.
Now you're going to put that cut that you made over here, and this cut, put those down and put the left side of the heart up. Make the same kind of cut in the left ventricle, the left auricle, cut down into the left ventricle, going sort of almost towards the apex, okay? So that we can expose the bicuspid valve and the left atrial chamber and the left ventricular chamber. You make the same cut you made on the right side, only you're doing it on the left side. Down into the left ventricle is very thick, so you're gonna have to cut patiently and slowly with your little scalpel blade. Down towards the apex, through this thick left ventricular wall.
Oh, she won all
And then kind of force it open and cut anything that is in your way here. Don't cut too deep, but you may have to cut some tendinous cords. Then pull this open like that. That's your left atrial chamber and left ventricular chamber.
I want this curved. I'm sorry.
She said, yeah, cut that out your way.
I'm not
And you're just going to kind of get your fingers in there and give it a strong tug and pull it open like this. It may rip a little bit of ventricular tissue down here, or you can cut it with your scalpel.
I'm inside the heart now. So this is the left atrium and this is the left ventricle.
Oh God.
I might be wrong, but I think the left ventricle is the strongest one because it has to pump it to the veins, to the lungs. But I might be wrong.
Hey, when you do this, you should expose the bicuspid valve. Okay? It has one big posterior cusp, and the anterior cusp you should have cut. Half of it should be over here, and half of it over here. This is the big posterior cusp. You can see the tendinous cords. You may have cut some of them to get the chamber open. Papillary ridges again, the tendinous cords. Notice that the left atrial chamber, the back wall is very smooth, but if you do look at the front wall, you will see some of those pectinate ridges, although they're not as prominent as they were in the right atrium.
There we go.
Okay? This time you want to run your fingers around this left atria, looking for openings, and where your fingers come out of the left atria.
Say it right.
That's the entrance point for the pulmonary veins, bringing the blood back to the left atria from the lungs. Again, it should be two separate openings. If it's cut down low, the pulmonary veins will all be one opening. That's the entrance point for the pulmonary veins coming back to the left atria.
Okay.
Yeah, my hand is cold.
This is a good time to mention that these dissected hearts will be on the lab exam. We typically use the instructor's dissections, not yours. You're going to throw yours all away once you study it because they're usually so bad that I would never use them on the lab exam. Okay? But I will keep every heart that I cut all week, which will be 4 or 6 of them by the end of the week. And that's what will go on the lab exam is some instructor's hearts, dissected hearts, okay? You're not going to have a review session to look at these again, so make sure you're very comfortable identifying all the structures on the dissection list before you dispose of this heart. And I just want to say that, you know, this might be sitting like this with a pin in it, and it'll say, what's the structure? That's the left auricle flap. What's this? That's the left ventricular wall. Or it might be propped open and say, what's this space here? This is the left atrial chamber. What's this structure here? That's the bicuspid valve. Okay? So while you have this open, and you found those pulmonary vein entrances, I just want to show you that sometimes we'll just put a probe through like this, and we'll say, what is the probe exiting in? And you have to know that that's the pulmonary vein opening because it's coming out of the left atrium. Okay? The other thing that you have to find, and this is probably the most difficult thing to locate, is if you haven't cut these tendinous cords from this posterior bicuspid valve cusp, you need to cut them now, cut the tendinous cords, put your probe up under that posterior cusp, and if you probe around with your probe there, you should be going through the aortic semilunar valve and push your probe all the way up, and the top of the heart here, it should come up and to the aorta. So this cut vessel here behind the pulmonary trunk, this is the pulmonary trunk that we cut. This cut vessel behind it, this big large one, is the aorta. And that's the only way we find the aortic semilunar valve. Once you have it, you can tip it up and look in there and see the 3 valve cusps. But that's how it's always marked on the exam, is with a probe going through it. We use the probe.
We didn't really. I mean, ours is already used, but
The valve cuff was in here.